A stepdaughter Elara never raised her voice. She didn't need to. In the house of Corwin, silence was more powerful than screams. But Vivian thrived on invisibility. Not her own, of course. Hers was radiant, immaculate. She needed others to vanish so her shine would never be questioned. Elara was the perfect target. The first few months were quiet enough. Lila, eager to fit in, tiptoed around Vivian's presence like a guest in her own home. Reginald, infatuated in growing older, simply watched from the distance, blind to the storm he had married into. Meanwhile, Elara moved like a shadow through the house, quiet, compliant, observing. But Vivian noticed every step. She saw the way her father was. I softened when Elara mentioned books they had both read. She noticed how guests sometimes paused, surprised by Elara's intelligence, her subtle charm, her quiet dignity. That was unacceptable. Vivian didn't compete. She eliminated. It began with exclusion. Elara would be told of dinner parties minutes before they began, handed an invitation with a forced smile in a gown 2 sizes too large. We assumed you wouldn't be interested, Vivian would say. These things can be a bit overwhelming. Oh, worse, I thought you were more of a stay-at-home type. Elara always attended, dressed simply, spoke gently, endured the whispers. But Vivian escalated. She rearranged the household stuff. Elara's meals began arriving late or cold. Her books disappeared from the study, replaced with fashion catalogs in tabloid subtle mockery wrapped in gloss. The piano she used for practice was locked. No explanation, just silence. And then came the performances. Vivian was a master of public cruelty disguised as elegance. At a New Year's gala, she introduced Elara to a circle of investors as Lila's little project, before laughing softly, as if it were a joke only the elite could understand. Elara stood still, eyes lowered, as champagne sparkled around her. At a museum benefit, Vivian orchestrated a scene where Elara's modest heels snapped on a freshly waxed marble floor just as photographers turned their lenses. Later, Vivian would feign concern. No, dear, were those shoes yours? At home, the games were more pointed. Vivian would invite Elara to tea with her socialite friends, only to turn the conversation to boarding schools that might help girls from simpler backgrounds adjust to elite society. One afternoon, she handed Elara a gift-wrapped box. Inside, a gold-embossed etiquette manual. No words, just a look. But Elara's silence never cracked. She didn't cry. She didn't retaliate. She simply grew quieter, sharper. And Vivian hated her for it. She wanted a reaction, a scene, tears. Instead, she got a mirror. Elara was a constant reminder of everything Vivian pretended to be graceful, composed, effortless. Only how, that made her dangerous. Vivian turned her attention to control. She began influencing Lila subtly, coldly insisting that Elara was too sheltered, too delicate, too naive to thrive in this world. She framed concern as care. Lila, desperate to keep peace, listened. The distance grew. Elara began eating alone. She skipped events. She locked her door. Still Vivian pushed. The final blow came during a private dinner hosted by Reginald for a foreign delegation. A chance to secure a major investment deal. Vivian wore emerald silk. Elara, e her usual muted tones, was seated near the end of the table. The conversation turned to family. Vivian smiled, raised a glass, and said, I was lucky. My father raised me to be strong. Not everyone's children rise to the occasion, of course, but we must be patient with slow bloomers. A soft chuckle followed. Polite, tense. Elara didn't look up. Later that night, she stood at her window, watching the estate shimmer in gold and white. Somewhere inside, music played, glasses clinked, laughter echoed, but something inside her had shifted. Not broken, hardened. She realized Vivian wasn't just trying to humiliate her. She was trying to erase her. But ghosts have a way of returning, especially when they learn how to haunt. The Golden Cagete called her the Diamond of the East Coast. Vivian Corwin had it all beauty sculpted like royalty, a name etched into every luxury tower from Manhattan to Monaco, in the kind of untouchable presence that made even politicians tread carefully. She wasn't just a billionaire heiress. She was an institution, the daughter of Reginald Corwin, Howe estate tycoon, investment emperor, a master of legacy building. Vivian was born not just into money, but into myth. Every inch of her world sparkled. She dignité walk. She arrived. Rolls-Royce doors open like theater curtains. Journalists called her the silent queen of New York. Photos of her stepping onto yachts, sipping vintage wine, and speaking at shareholder meetings were plastered on the covers of every magazine that mattered. Her fashion choices dictated seasons. Her smile, rare as it was, became a symbol of cold perfection. But even golden cages cast shadows. Reginald, twice widowed and long considered immune to emotion, did something unexpected. He fell in love, not with a model, not with a socialite, but with a woman named Lila, an art history professor from Vermont. Unassuming, quiet, kind, and divorced, with a daughter of her own. Vivian was 30 when Lila entered the picture. She had ruled her father's world for a decade, acting as his right hand, his confidant, his shield. She knew every corridor of his empire, every deal, every weakness. Lila, by contrast, came in like a whisper. Her daughter, Elara, a ghost. Elara was 17 when she arrived at the Corwin estate. Thin, pale, unapologetically introverted. She wore plain sweaters, kept her hair tied back, and spoke softly, always looking slightly past people, as if they were not kitschy out to her. She wasn't ugly. In fact, some said she had a strange kind of elegance. But next to Vivian, she may as well have been invisible. Vivian didn't rage. She didn't object. She didn't protest her father's marriage or the presence of this new family. Instead, she watched, calculated, adjusted. She welcomed them in public, and began the slow suffocation in private. The first signs were subtle. Vivian had Elara's room relocated from the east wing, with its view of the gardens, to a smaller guest chamber near the servants' quarters. Each is just temporary, she said. We here remodeling. No one dared question her. Then came the wardrobe oversight. A gala was planned, a celebration of the Corwin Foundation's new philanthropic arm. Custom gowns were ordered for every woman in the house. Elara received nothing. A simple mistake, Vivian claimed. Really fix it next chimney. There was never a next chimney. At dinner parties, Vivian would introduce Lila's, my father's wife, in Elara's. Nothing. The girl would stand, awkward and silent, clutching a glass of water while champagne flutes clinked around her. She became part of the decor present but unacknowledged. Yes, too. She said nothing. Elara spent her days in the library, her nights walking the estate grounds alone. She wasn't allowed to hide in the family cars without permission. She wasn't included in travel plans, business events, or even birthday celebrations. Vivian made sure she was always 2 steps behind. The public saw a blended family, a graceful heiress opening her home to her new stepmother and stepsister. Photos were staged, smiles practiced, interviews rehearsed. We always believed in second chances, Vivian once told a journalist. We all stronger together. But behind closed doors, Elara wasn't a sister. She was a symbol, a stain on the purity of the Corwin bloodline, a reminder that her father's heart could be swayed by someone outside Vivian's control. In control, for Vivian, was everything. Yet Elara wasn't stupid. She noticed, she remembered, and most of all she waited. The Corwin estate, with its grand pillars and marble floors, wasn't a home. It was a theater, and Vivian was its star, performer. But every empire, no matter how polished, holds a fault line. And beneath the chandeliers and silent glances, something was beginning to crack. Because not all cages are prisons. Some are training grounds. E Elara, the invisible girl, in the corner, was watching closely. Whispers in marble house. The Corwin estate had always been a masterpiece of control, polished to perfection, sterile in its elegance. Every surface gleamed, every sound was hushed. In that silence, secrets moved like smoke through corridors, lined with portraits of the past men and women who built empires, lost them, and buried the wreckage behind forged smiles. Elara had learned how to walk those halls without being seen. But she had also learned something else, how to listen. It was in the silence that she heard things others missed. A butler's hesitation when delivering a message, a passing glance between 2 board members. The way her mother, Lila, grew moody, distant each week as if something unspoken hovered over her every word. Vivian was slipping, Not visibly, not yet, but arrogance breeds blindness. Her obsession to erase Elara. She had ignored a simple truth: invisible people see everything. Elara began piecing together what Vivian never meant anyone to see. She noticed inconsistencies in financial statements her stepfather left on the dining table. She overheard fragments of heated phone calls from Vivian's wing of the estate. One night, as the mansion slept, she found the first Heiress folder accidentally left open in the drawing room. It was a portfolio of offshore accounts, names she didn't recognize, amounts that made no sense, transfers between shell companies registered to Islandese she'd never heard of, one signature subtle, faint belonging to someone she thought long gone, her father's former business partner. The next day, she confronted her mother, not with accusation, just curiosity. Why don't we ever talk about that old partner? The one who disappeared after the merger? Lila flinched. I don't know, sweetheart. He was complicated. Reginald said it was better to let the past rest. But Elara saw the lie, not in the words but in the pies. Something had happened, something buried. Vivian, sensing Elara's shifting energy, doubled down. She intensified her tactics, cancelled Elara's tutoring sessions, changed the security codes on the family's private offices, assigned a staff member to assist Elara during her walks, really, a glorified chaperone. But Elara no longer needed access. She had knowledge, a knowledge the Cohen world was currency. At a formal dinner with international investors, Vivian staged her boldest humiliation yet. Elara, seated at the far end of the table, was asked to introduce herself. Before she could speak, Vivian interjected. She is a lovely girl. Vivian smiled. Quiet, keeps to herself. We hear you, finding where she fits. The investors chuckled politely. Elara didn't speak, but in her mind, a door had opened. She began writing, documenting every slight, every manipulation, every hidden account, every coded name, every trace of the network Vivian thought she'd erased. She reached out anonymously through encrypted forums. She connected with a retired employee of Corwin Enterprises, someone who remembered the early years, someone who remembered the disappearance. In the essay when the story cracked wide open, Reginald's former partner had disappeared. He had been pushed out brutally, quietly after refusing to cover up a series of unethical investments Vivian had orchestrated during a foreign acquisition. The partner threatened exposure. Weeks later, he was gone, declared mentally unstable, institutionalized, assets frozen. Vivian told the family he'd left voluntarily, but Elara now held documents proving otherwise. She understood, finally, what Vivian had done, not just till her, till the empire, till her father's legacy, but understanding wasn't enough. She needed distance, chimney, safety, so she began to plan. Each step was calculated. She withdrew from events completely, stopped responding, till her mother's strained attempts at closeness became a ghost within the walls. No one noticed. There was the gift of being dismissed. Then, one night, without a word, she vanished. No note, no bag, no warning. Gone. The staff murmured. The media speculated. Vivian, predictably, feigned concern. Publicly, she described Elara as sensitive nature, citing emotional instability as the likely cause of her disappearance. Privately, she celebrated. But Marble remembers. In the house that once silenced Elara were about to echo with her return. The quiet as it happened in silence. No slammed doors, no goodbye, no dramatic escape in the rain. Elara simply vanished. By morning, her room was untouched, her bed is too magic, her books aligned on the shelf like silent witnesses. Only the closet revealed the truth. Half of her clothes were missing, along with the folder she had been compiling in secret. The staff noticed first, then Lila, then Reginald. But it was Vivian who broke the news to the public. A tragic situation, she said into the microphones outside the estate gates. We believe Elara may be going through a personal crisis. We ask for privacy and compassion during this difficult time. Her tone was practiced, her expression flawless. But beneath the surface, Vivian wasn't mourning. She was breathing easier. The obstacle was gone. The invisible girl had erased herself. No scandal, no exposure, just a vanishing act that could be spun as sadness, mental strain, or youthful confusion. She didn't need to lie, she only needed to say less than the truth. The media devoured the story. The stepdaughter of the Cohen dynasty gone without a trace. Rumors bloomed like mold. Some said she ran away with a secret lover. Others whispered of pregnancy, embezzlement, even suicide. Vivian let the theories swirl, feeding the ones that made her look generous, concerned, protective. She hosted a charity event e Heiress named 2 weeks later, a benefit for young women struggling with identity and belonging. Photographers captured her dabbing her eyes as she spoke of hope in family. Behind the curtain, she poured herself champagne. He whispered, finally, but the house had changed. Reginald, once stony precise, began to falter. He asked fewer questions e bored meetings, misplaced names, forgot dates. His doctors called it stress. Lila called it heartbreak. Vivian called it weakness. The old man was grieving, not just the loss of a stepdaughter, but the quiet realization that he had failed her, that he had handed his legacy to a woman Maja Vice. He ignored the fire burning silently in the one girl who never asked for anything. The cracks spread. Cohen Enterprises began to stutter. Small errors in quarterly reports, missed meetings, rumblings from investors about new leadership. Vivian brushed it off. The market is shifting, she'd say. We're adapting. But behind her cold confidence was unease. One evening, she found Reginald D. his study, staring at a photo, an old one, taken on the balcony of their summer villa. Elada was in the background, caught mid-laugh. Vivian had cropped her out of the framed version that hung in the high. Now Reginald held the original. She was brighter than all of us, he murmured. I let her disappear. Vivian said nothing. She didn't. The guilt was his, but the silence was hers. Then came the audit, a surprise inspection of Cohen's foreign branches, triggered by an anonymous whistleblower. Financial inconsistencies, misuse of philanthropic funds, delayed shipments from the South Asian subsidiary. It was signed authorizations bearing Vivian's name. She denied everything, blamed middle management, blamed digital fraud. But her voice, for the first time in years, didn't sound sudden. Because she knew, Elada hadn't just disappeared. She had retreated, prepared, watched, and now she was moving. Vivian spent nights pacing the mansion corridors, unable to sleep. She began receiving packages, empty envelopes, no sender, no message, just her own company letterhead, blank. Each wasn't a threat, each was a countdown. Lila withdrew further. Reginald fell ill. In the family, once presented as the pinnacle of American aristocracy, began to rot from within. They had removed the girl, but they hadn't killed the story. The girl was no longer a ghost. She was a storm, waiting just beyond the glass. The Returnite was a Tuesday night, ordinary in every way. The city buzzed with routine noisy limousines lined up outside ballrooms, champagne flowed in house lit by crystal chandeliers. The Cohen Foundation was hosting its annual winter Legacy Gala at the Metropolitan Pavilion. High society was in attendance. Vivian stood at the top of the marble staircase, radiant in black satin, speaking to reporters with poise. Rehearsed 1,000 chimes, until the room fell silent. Each wasn't a microphone drop. Each wasn't a fire alarm. Each was a presence, a shift in the atmosphere, like the temperature had dropped 10 degrees a second. Every head turned. She walked slowly, elegantly. Elada, but not the girl they remembered. Not the quiet, shy figure who lingered at the edge of every photo, out of frame e out of place. No, this was someone new, taller, sharper, poised. Her dark hair was swept into a sleek braid. Her dress was tailored perfection, deep navy, understated, powerful. A single pendant glinted at her collarbone. Her gaze, unflinching. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. Vivian froze. She saw the girl she thought she had erased, now a woman, rebuilt from bony fury. And behind her, walking 2 steps behind, was a man the Cohen family had buried years ago. Vitor Hale, Reginald's former business partner. The one Vivian had framed, discredited, institutionalized, and now very much alive. Elada walked past the donors, the photographers, the frozen white staff. She stopped at the foot of the staircase and met Vivian's eyes. Your guest list was missing 2 names, she said calmly. The cameras snapped. The silence shattered. Within minutes, the news was everywhere. Cohen's stepdaughter returns with former business partner presumed mentally unfit. Scandal erupts at Billionaire gala. Heiress faces ghosts from the past. Vivian tried to speech, smiled through her teeth, called it a welcome surprise, but her hands trembled, and her voice faltered. Ela was not ready for reconciliation. She was ready for revelation. In the following days, she released a statement not through a press agent, but directly on a live broadcast streamed across multiple platforms. She didn't cry. She didn't accuse. She presented facts, documents, transaction records, evidence of financial manipulation, the silencing of Vitor Hale, the network of offshore accounts Vivian had maintained for nearly a decade, the philanthropic fraud buried beneath public charity events. She didn't make it emotional. She made it undeniable. And then, she paused. There are the things money can buy, she said. Silence, power, fear. But there is one thing it can bury forever: truth. The internet erupted. She became a symbol of resilience, of intelligence, of elegance forged in cruelty. But more than that, she became a threat Vivian couldn't suppress. Because Lara hadn't just returned with secrets. She returned with the lies. Vitor Hale had spent years in isolation. But now, he had nothing left to lose, everything to say. His testimony alone was enough to trigger federal interest. And then came the shareholders. Meetings were called. Votes held. And the unthinkable began to unfold. Vivian's grip was slipping. For the first time, her voice wasn't final. Her decisions weren't absolute. Because now, everyone was watching someone else. Lara and Vivian couldn't stop what came next. Not with charm, not with threats, not with all the wealth in the world. Because she had built her empire atop silence. And silence had finally spoken. The table-tossed boardroom was silent. Not the kind of silence that follows applause, nor the reverent hush of respect. This was the silence of reckoning, of eyes avoiding each other, of power, once absolute, realizing each had nowhere left to hide. Vivian Cohen sat at the head of the long obsidian table, polished, cold, and now a stage for her unraveling. Around her, the members of the Cohen Enterprises executive board read through documents delivered not by her legal team, but by Lara Wren. She had dropped her mother's name, Wren, not Cohen. She didn't need the dynasty anymore. The files included everything: proof of falsified philanthropic reports, digital footprints leading to offshore laundering accounts, internal communications showing board manipulation, and suppression of whistleblowers. All of it illegal, all of it irrefutable. The final blow came from Vitor Hale himself, standing tall at Lara's side. I was labeled unstable, he said, institutionalized, silenced, not because I was a threat to this company but because I stood between it and a lie. Vivian attempted a counter. She called it a setup, claimed the documents were forged, accused Lara of manipulation, of betrayal, of being used, but her voice trembled. Her usual surgical control fractured the real team. In the board saw it, investors saw it, the world saw it, because Lara had anticipated everything. She released a video statement moments after the meeting concluded calm, poised, strategic. I was never a threat, she said. I was a mirror, and when people hit their reflection, they try to break it. The media devoured it. Her speech was broadcast globally, trending across every platform within hours. Excerpts were replayed on primetime news. Clips went viral. Quotes printed on magazine covers. E didn't return for revenge. I returned because silence deserves justice. Vivian's mask finally cracked, and the consequences came fast. Contracts dissolved overnight. A global tech firm severed its multi-million-dollar partnership with Cohen Enterprises. The brand that had once stood for elite precision and untouchable legacy was now synonymous with deception, abuse, and cover-up. But the sharpest pain came from within the family. Reginald Cohen, now frail and frequently medicated, watched the fallout unfold from the quiet corner of his estate. The man who had once ruled towers now lived in the shadow of regret. And when the board presented a revised version of his will drafted weeks prior by his own request, he signed. Vivian was removed entirely from all hodges, from all authority, from the legacy. Lara was named trustee. It wasn't just symbolic. It was justice. Vivian didn't fight it. Not publicly. She gave a statement. Short, cold. Ivy chosen to take time for reflection and healing. I wish my family peace. No one believed her, because by then, no one feared her. In the weeks that followed, muddy voices came forward, former employees, assistants, interns, all telling similar stories: intimidation, manipulation, subtle psychological warfare. Lawsuits began forming. Investigations opened. Vivian's once pristine image became tabloid fodder. Headlines read, Heiress of Silence, the fall of Vivian Corwin's stepdaughter as truth becomes Heiress's downfall. Meanwhile, Elada declined interviews, declined modeling contracts, publishing deals, brand endorsements. Her only public appearance after this speech was at a Social Justice Summit, where she announced the launch of the Ren Foundation, an initiative supporting silence survivors of high society abuse. She wasn't interested in building an empire. She wanted to build sanctuary, and it was what truly dismantled Vivian. Because Elada didn't want power, she wanted purpose. A purpose can't be bought. The tables had turned. In the ruins of a dynasty built on ice, Elada stood not as a queen, not as a victim, but as a force. Proof that when truth is patient. The fall 4 years, Vivian Corwin had ruled through silence. Now that silence ruled her, the grand estates once filled with stuffy laughter and champagne-fueled evenings stood abandoned. Curtains drawn, gates locked. The only sounds were the whispers of scandal echoing through corridors of marble and gold. The empire had not just fractured, it had collapsed. One by one, her privileges dissolved. Private jets sold. Luxury brands cut ties. Her name, once synonymous with elite sophistication, now dragged through headline-soaked disgrace. Her face no longer filtered through controlled appearances, appeared candid shots, grainy and pally, exiting courtrooms or buried behind oversized sunglasses. She lost her seat on the Corwin board. She lost her apartment in Paris. She lost the protection of her father's name. And yet, it was not the loss of power that broke her. It was the loss of control. For the first time, Vivian Corwin could not dictate the narrative. She became the subject of LA forums, documentaries, Latinitis possess. Stories emerged from all corners, former assistants detailing how she belittled them into silence, interns who had signed it out of fear. One young woman who claimed Vivian threatened to ruin her career after overhearing a phone called it exposed early fraud. But perhaps the sharpest blade came from Reginald himself. Publicly frail, yes but not senile, he released a final statement. I failed as a father by trusting ambition more than integrity. My legacy now belongs to someone who understands both. Each was short. Each ended Vivian. There was no redemption arc. She tried, hired a new PR team, tried to reshape the narrative, the misunderstood daughter, the harsh world of women in business, the sacrifice of perfection. But no one listened, because while the world loves a phoenix, it does not forgive a tyrant who burned others to stay in flight. Vivian found herself unwelcome at the very places she once dominated. Country clubs rescinded memberships. Philanthropic circles ignored her invitations. Her name became a warning, not a recommendation. In Elada, she never gloated. She never looked back. She moved forward, quietly but powerfully, rebuilding with a different kind of brick, not marble, but trust. The Ren Foundation gained traction fast. Survivors wrote letters. Anonymous donors stepped forward. Elada used her influence not to shine but to shelter. She appointed experts, not loyalists. She spoke rarely, but when she did, her words carried the weight of lived experience, not spectacle. She turned down interviews from global networks. But one moment, one image, made its way into the public sphere. Elada, standing in front of a modest would-be shelter, smiling faintly as she handed over a key to a young woman who had lost everything and now had a place to begin again. That photo said what no press release could. Vivian saw it, and for the first time, she cried, not out of pity, but because she finally understood that power without soul is nothing, and that the girl she once humiliated had become something she herself could never be: trusted, respected, remembered for the right reasons. Now, Vivian lives alone. A penthouse, still hers paid in full, and touched by the courts. But no staffy, no celebrations, no calls, only mirrors. Each one a reflection she no longer recognizes. Because when you fall from a place that was never truly yours, the landing is de te acresce. Each is a disappearance. Legacy heritage gates opened slowly that morning. Not to a convoy of luxury vehicles, not to journalists desperate for scandal, just a modest electric car and a few quiet guests in dark clothing. No cameras, no ceremony. Elara Wren was coming home. The Cohen estate, once ruled with an idle smile and pristine silence, had changed. The portraits in the entrance hall remained, but new ones were being added, not of dynasties or donors, but of children in community scientists, women leading empowerment initiatives, artists and thinkers supported by the Wren Foundation. Where once power walked in polished heels, purpose now walked barefoot. Elara stepped inside alone. She paused in the marble foyer where she once stood unseen, unheard, uninvited. Her footsteps echoed through the empty halls like a memory reborn. Nothing had been remodeled, yet everything was different. The soul of the place had shifted. This time, she didn't walk as a guest. She was there now, not till the wealth, till the truth. She had turned the full ownership of the Cohen fortune, choosing instead to restructure the family trust into a new entity. The Elara initiative, a blend of philanthropic power and social accountability. The estate would become its headquarters. The board would include no family members, only survivors, experts, visionaries. Justice had been served. But this was the beginning of healing. In her private office, a sunlit room that used to be Vivian's sanctuary, Elara placed one photograph on the desk. It was not of Reginald, not of Lila, not even of herself. It was a photo of the night she returned till the gala. The moment everything shifted, it reminded her revenge had never been the goal. Dignity was. Vivian, now living exile from her former life, sent one letter, handwritten, no apology, no request, just a single line: I was wrong, you were always stronger. Elara never responded, because some silences don't need to be broken. Outside, children from a local shelter were arriving for a leadership workshop. They stepped out in wonder, walking into halls that once echoed with cold wealth. Now, they were filled with laughter. They didn't know the full history. They didn't need to, because Elara had done something no Cohen ever did. She didn't just protect the legacy. She redefined it. From greed till grace, from silence till strength, from humiliation till humanity. The mansion that once smothered her had become a sanctuary. In somewhere, in a small garden tucked behind the estate, a plaque was placed. Beneath the oldest tree, it read, "Power is not what you keep, it is what you free." Elara stood before it that evening as the sun dipped below the horizon. She closed her eyes, felt the wind, and let the last piece of the past fall away. This was no longer a story of cruelty. It was a story of reclamation, of a girl no one believed in, becoming the woman no one could ignore. Final statement: the cost of Silencia's stories are written in gold, others are carved in scars. Elara Wren's journey was not about inheritance, it was not about revenge, it was about something far more powerful: dignity. She didn't destroy Vivian. Vivian collapsed under the weight of her own lies. And when the dust settled, it was not the richest voice that remained, it was the truest. What Elara taught the world is simple but terrifying for those who live behind masks. You can control the narrative for years. You can silence people, erase names, even rewrite history. But eventually, truth knocks. And when it does need to ask permission. So ask yourself now, have you ever silenced someone to protect your comfort? Have you ever looked away because the truth was too inconvenient? Would you have stood where Elara stood or crumbled like Vivian did? Let us know in the comments, because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is speak. If this story moved you, share it. Let it reach others who need to remember. Silence is a weapon, but so is memory. In the right hands, memory becomes justice.